Good morning. Our gathering song this morning is going to be what we used for our, I think it was opening hymn last week, You Are Enough. And we'll go through the main line and then the accompanying line, and then we'll sing it all together 2 times. So I'll sing this one time and then sing along with me the second time. Go ahead and sing the first time if you remember it. You are enough, go gentle on the earth, go gentle on yourself, you are enough. We'll do that again. You are enough, go gentle on the earth, go gentle on yourself, you are enough. And here's the accompanying line. You want to do that? You are enough, go gentle on the earth, go gentle on yourself, you are enough. Here we go. Anybody want to sing melody? Go ahead. 2, go. You are enough, go gentle on the earth, go gentle on yourself, you are enough. Again. You are enough, go gentle on the earth, go gentle on yourself, you are enough.
I have great news. Having just passed the vernal equinox, our days are lengthening at their fastest rate ever. We are getting more than 3 minutes of new daytime every day now. My own thoughts are moving toward planting seeds for this year's crops and wondering when the danger of frost will end. And I'm also noticing the level of the Winooski River and wondering if it will rebound from the drought that we had last year. The Western Abenaki people were faced with the limitations that weather imposed on them during their stewardship of the lands and waters. And the stewardship of the lands and waters of their traditional homeland where we are gathered here today. We offer respect to the tribes and elders who revered and moved gentle on the earth, our home. Good morning. My name is Tom Shurston, and my pronouns are he, him, and his. And I am your worship associate this morning. On behalf of the entire worship team, I am delighted to welcome all of you, both those of you sitting in the sanctuary and those watching on the live stream. Whether you are a newcomer, a longtime member, or somewhere in between, we deeply appreciate your presence and fellowship. Since 1864, this Unitarian Universalist congregation has been a sanctuary for those seeking spiritual sustenance as well as peace and justice in the world. With you here today, we continue on that path. Please know that we have hearing assist devices at the table in the back of the sanctuary, and also know that you can listen to and watch the service downstairs in the fireplace room if you should need to leave the sanctuary for any reason. It's always a pleasure to have newcomers and guests join us for worship. If this is your first or second time visiting and you wish to do so, you are invited to wave your hand or stand so that we might offer you a special welcome. Fantastic. Thank you. We are glad you are here. Any of you who are newcomers to our congregation and worship services are encouraged to join us for coffee hour immediately following the service so that we can offer you a more personal welcome. You are encouraged to fill out the welcome form available at the welcome table so that we can connect with you outside of our service. Again, a warm welcome to each and every one of you. I invite you now to turn to your neighbors from your seat in the sanctuary and offer each other your greetings. It's nice to have such an active and talkative congregation. You are invited to continue your conversation at coffee hour. This is like herding Unitarian Universalists. We will be gathering here in the sanctuary again at 2:00 p.m. on Saturday, April 1st, to honor the life of Art Stuckey. The reception is being coordinated by the Women's Alliance, and if you could assist in helping set up the vestry, say at 12:30, or contributing finger food, either savory or sweet, and deliver that by 1:30, or helping with cleanup, then please stop by the Women's Alliance table during coffee hour to sign up. When you do get to coffee hour, you will see multiple tables set up with games and snacks, especially for the youth and adults who have been corresponding anonymously throughout March Madness until coffee hour today. Today, everyone finds out who their partner is in this activity, and even if you didn't participate in this activity, you're welcome to join in the fun. We ask that you simply find a table that doesn't have a number on it, because the numbered tables are for the couples that are meeting each other. The Climate Action Team invites you to come to the Vermont State House to be part of Faith Climate Action Day this Wednesday, March 29th. Activities will begin with a news conference at 11:30 a.m. Meet either in the UCM vestry no later than 11:15 a.m. to walk together to the State House, or go directly to the Cedar Creek room for the press conference. As always, be sure to read the Friday e-news for information about how you can connect with others and serve our community. The prelude for today was originally scheduled for April, and that would be April of 2020, for a service that had a similar theme, but our Sunday morning services did not survive until April that year, because we were quarantining to avoid the spread of COVID. 3 years later, we are still careful, but we can now offer this particular music. Please prepare yourself for the prelude.
The universe so all bewildering.
What is the hoax that just provokes the folks they call God's children? What is the jinx that keeps a body and his brother and everyone around the runaround?
We are going to tell you. Necessity.
necessity. That most unnecessary thing, necessity. What throws a monkey wrench in a fella's good intention? A nasty old invention, necessity.
Says your rent ain't paid.
Necessity. It's plain to see what a lovely old world this silly old world could be. But man, it's all in a mess, account of necessity. Love to play some tennis.
No. There ought to be a law. Don't you think?
Yeah. There ought to be.
A law. Let's go back.
To where? There ought to be a law against necessity.
Sister, you're so right.
I'd like to play some tennis, or maybe take a trip to Venice. But mister, here's the menace. Necessity.
Oh, Satan's the father of sin. Cupid is the father of love. Hell is the father of sin.
But no one knows the father of necessity.
Necessity. Necessity.
It's the minimum that a minimum thing could be. There's nothing lower than less, unless it's necessity. Satan is the father of sin, and Cupid is the father of love. Hell is the father of sin, but no one knows the father of necessity. Necessity. That's the maximum that a minimum thing could be. Lower than less, unless it's necessity. Necessity.
I think maybe we can just all go home now. We gather together out of our necessity for the light and warmth and humor of community. We gather because we need others with whom to share our joy and our despair. We gather as one human community within an interdependent earth community, a circle of life to which we belong. In this hour of worship, let us affirm that, in the words of William Schultz, every one of us is held in creation's hand, a part of the interdependent cosmic web, that no one is saved until we are all saved, where all means the whole of creation. And let us now rise in body or spirit. Join in singing our opening hymn. You'll find that in the gray hymnal, number 163, For the Earth Forever Turning.
Let us now light the chalice, symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith. This morning, we welcome Cass Madison and Finn and Luna to light the chalice. And as they do, I invite you to light a chalice at home if you have one nearby. We light this flame, an enduring symbol of our collective commitment to lead with truth and compassion. Now let us join our voices in saying these words of affirmation, adapted by L. Griswold Williams. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve human need, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant.
At this time, I'd like to invite forward children of all ages and children at heart for a story. The story I have for you today is called The Stream, and it's a traditional Sufi story. And Claire is going to help me with some of the props. A stream from its course in the far-off mountains, passing through every kind and description of countryside, at last reached the sands of the desert. Just as it had crossed every other barrier, the stream tried to cross this one, but found that as fast as it ran into the sand, its waters disappeared. It was convinced, however, that its destiny was to cross the desert. And yet, there was no way. Now, a hidden voice coming from the desert itself whispered, "The wind crosses the desert, and so can the stream." The stream objected that the wind could fly, and this was why it could cross a desert. By hurtling in your own accustomed way, you cannot get across. You will either disappear or become a marsh. You must allow the wind to carry you over your destination. But how could this happen? By allowing yourself to be absorbed in the wind. This idea was not acceptable to the stream. After all, it had never been absorbed before. It did not want to lose its individuality. And once having lost it, how was it to know that one's identity could ever be regained? The wind, said the sand, performs this function. It takes up water, carries it over the desert, and then lets it fall again. How can I know that's true? It is so, and if you do not believe it, you cannot become more than a quagmire. Does anybody know what a quagmire is? It's like a boggy marsh that when you step on it, it goes squish, 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 and the water oozes between your toes. But can I not remain the same stream I am today? You cannot in either case remain so, the whisper said. When it heard this, echoes began to arise in the thoughts of the stream. Dimly, it remembered a state in which it, or maybe was it some part of it, had been held in the arms of the wind. And the stream raised its vapor into the welcoming arms of the wind, which gently and easily bore it upwards and along, letting it fall softly as rain. Once they reached the roof of a mountain many, many miles away, where it then became a river. And that is our story for today. And at this time, I'd like to invite the congregation to join in singing our children's parting song while our children go to their religious, spiritual exploration classes.
Our giving is a spiritual act, and our generosity is a form of love and gratitude that helps us to practice Unitarian Universalism in support of our shared values with our collective resources. Charity is central to the well-being of our church community and beyond, as well as primary to our own sense of self. Each month through the UCM Community Pouch program, we share part of our collection with an important church fund or a community organization aligned with our values. You can find these green offering pouches at the ends of the pews on the sides of the aisles to be passed toward the center aisle for collection. This month's Community Pouch recipient is Just Basics, which is the nonprofit that operates the Montpelier Food Pantry, and their needs assessment revealed that the patrons are asking for connection and community as well as for nutritional support. Half of our cash offerings will go to our pouch recipient. The other half will directly support the mission and ministry of this congregation. If you wish to designate your entire offering to the community pouch, please indicate that with a note attached to your cash or in the memo line of your check. Checks will go to the church unless designated otherwise. We are so thankful for each and every one of you for your generosity in its many forms. Your offering is gratefully received.
Thank you so much for that, choir. And we acknowledge the generosity with which your financial gifts have been freely and lovingly offered this morning. We receive them with deep gratitude for the difference that those gifts allow us to make for one another in this church community and also beyond. Thank you. As we begin this time of meditation and prayer, I remind you that each Sunday we have a member of our lay pastoral care team available to lend a listening ear right here in the sanctuary after the service. And today our lay pastoral caregiver is Ruth Whitty. Thank you, Ruth, for being available. I invite you to settle in here for a few moments together in this time of meditation and prayer, allowing your body to be in whatever way it needs to be to feel more settled, more at peace in this moment. Allowing yourself perhaps to feel held right here in your seat. Allowing the weight of you to just sink in. Notice, if you can, your feet upon the ground, if they reach there. Allowing your feet to feel heavy and settled. Aware of the floor beneath your feet. Aware of where your hands might be resting, whether upon the seat, perhaps atop your legs. Knowing that all of this, your whole body and being, is connected to the earth that we can imagine is below this floor, down to the ground, the soil and rocks and substrate that is beneath us. We are connected to all of it. We are held by this earth that we just showed up upon. And that is grace. That is a gift. So let us hold in our minds and our hearts in these moments that gift of being present here with one another, the gift of all those who have been with us, and all those who have passed on. We can hold with gratitude this gift of simply being. Simply being inhabitants of this precious place. And these words of meditation are by Dolores LaChapelle. We give away our thanks to the earth which gives us our home. We give away our thanks to the rivers and lakes which give away their water. We give away our thanks to the trees which give away fruit and nuts. We give away our thanks to the wind, which brings rain to water the plants. We give away our thanks to the sun, who gives away warmth and light. all beings on earth, the trees, the animals, the wind, and the rivers, give away to one another, so all is in balance. We give away our promise to begin to learn how to stay in balance with all the earth. And let us now share in a time of quiet meditation together. The reading I have to share with you this morning is a poem entitled Equinox by Tomiko Bayer, featured in Split This Rock's The Quarry, a social justice poetry database. And Tomiko Bayer describes herself as a queer, mixed race, Japanese and white, cisgender woman and femme, living on Massachusetts, Wampanoag, and Pawtucket land. A social justice communications writer and strategist, she spends her days writing truth to power. Equinox. Dear child of the near future, here is what I know. Hawks soar on the updraft, and sparrows always return to the seed source until they spot the circling hawk. Then they disappear for days and return a full flock, ready. I think we all have the power to do what we must to survive. One day, I hope to set a table, invite you to draw up a chair, greens, steaming garlic, slices of bread still warm, honey flecked with wax, and a pitcher of clear water. Sustenance for acts of survival, for incantations stirring across our tongues. Can we climb out of this greedy mouth, disappear, and then return in force? My stars are tucked in my pocket, ready for battle. If we flood the streets with salt water, we can flood the sky with wings. Before Dr. Rajendra Singh arrived to Kishori village in the Alwar district of Rajasthan in India, the land was lush with grain stalks, and the area was known for its large grain market. But in 1985, when Dr. Singh got off the bus, he found a parched landscape, a district devoid of young people who had fled for the cities, and the elders suffering from night blindness and malnutrition. At the time, Dr. Singh was a young and idealistic, recent college graduate who wanted to make a difference. He opened up an Ayurvedic medicine practice, and some of his friends began working to improve education. However, Dr. Singh soon learned how deeply water scarcity was affecting the people of Kishori village. And one day, a village elder pulled him aside and told him that water was a more important issue to address than education or medicine. What the community needed to be healthy, the elder said, was water. The Alwar district is one that is naturally very dry, but a water crisis had been reached because of unsustainable agricultural practices, as well as the use of extractive bore wells that depleted the groundwater supply. The elder showed Dr. Singh these wells and then showed him one of the disregarded johads. Now, a johad is a water body, kind of like a pond, that is built to retain rainwater. It is a traditional communal practice of conserving water, but the johads had all been abandoned in this area to build more and more wells. So, along with others in the village, Dr. Singh set about restoring a johad in the village of Gopalpura. As monsoon season came, rains filled the johad, and it stayed full, supplying water for the landscape and the villagers. World Water Day was this past Wednesday, March 22nd. According to the World Health Organization, today 1 in 4 people on this planet, that's 2 billion people, lack safe drinking water. Water is just one of the resources on our planet that is at risk of pollution and depletion. Our desperate need for clean water reminds us of the fragile balance of life that we are a part of sustaining, and that our consciousness and our intentionality is needed in order to recover and maintain that balance. Religiously speaking, we are currently in the seasons of Ramadan and Lent. Ramadan in the Muslim tradition, Lent in the Christian tradition. And in both religions, these are seasons of observing spiritual discipline and reflection and for turning inward. The holy month of Ramadan is observed by most Muslims by fasting from dawn until sunset. And through fasting, Muslims make room for reflection on their relationship with God. They are reminded of the fragility of human life, and they develop habits of charity and generosity in compassion with those who live in need, not by choice, but by circumstance. Fasting has also historically been a spiritual practice that's part of the Lenten season. Christians who observe this 40-day period before Easter reflect on the events of Jesus' life before his death and resurrection, and often engage in practices of sacrifice or giving something up,
as a way of making space for a deeper relationship with God. Both seasons of religious observance bring into focus a stance of living with constraints, of facing limits, and engaging with sacrifice. Whether or not you observe Ramadan or Lent, I think that this tension between our desires and our impulses and what we truly need is an important spiritual tension to engage with. In that tension, the invitation is to reevaluate our relationship with what we believe we need and what we truly need. This tension comes into focus when we reflect on our relationship with this planet, this earth, our home. And we know that we have been living well beyond the resources of our planet in patterns of extracting from the earth. What had happened in the Alwar district of Rajasthan, India, with water scarcity has happened all across the globe. The evidence of our environmental impact through the climate crisis and the immense loss of biodiversity on Earth requires that we reevaluate what is enough. What is enough to sustain life in a way that we can all thrive, that we can all have what we need, and that we can let go of the myth that what we need is more. This time of environmental and climate crisis asks that we reflect on how we share what we do have with one another. Earlier this week, the Supreme Court heard arguments in a case over the rights of the Navajo Nation to access the Colorado River. Anyone hear about that case? 30% of those living in the Navajo Nation do not have access to clean, reliable drinking water. And meanwhile, 7 states are also vying for access to the limited waters of the Colorado River. This fight over water rights, to me, illustrates both that scarcity, there's a realness to that scarcity, but also that the scarcity mentality is predicated on a zero-sum understanding of how human communities live in interdependence with one another and the planet. We have pushed so far past the limits of the planet's natural resources that we've created a situation in which we're competing against one another and among different groups for survival. Meanwhile, just a couple of weeks ago, the Biden administration approved the Willow Project, allowing the energy corporation ConocoPhillips to drill for oil in the Natural Petroleum Reserve on Alaska's northern slope. The approval of this project, to me, seems pretty tough to square with our stated commitment to the Paris Climate Agreement and the significant reduction in carbon emissions that's needed to achieve climate stability. We have pushed and pushed beyond the limits that can reasonably be sustained. And in so doing, we have denied our own fragility. The neuropsychologist and author Rick Hansen speaks about the importance of embracing fragility. He says, "We are likely to deny or downplay the true extent of fragility. It's scary to realize how delicate and vulnerable your body is, like we talked about last week, or the threads that bind you to others, so easily frayed by a single word, or the balance of climate and ecology on our planet. It's scary and humbling, neither of which people like, to face the underlying frailty of the body, how easy it is for a relationship to go awry, the ways that so many of us are overextended and running on fumes, the rickety underpinnings of the global financial system, the deep fissures within many nations, or the unpredictability and intensity of Mother Nature." He continues, "But if we don't recognize fragility, we'll miss chances to protect and nurture so many things that matter, and we'll be needlessly surprised and upset when things do inevitably fall apart. We need to embrace fragility, to see it clearly and take it into our arms, to be grounded in truth, peaceful amidst life's changes and endings, and resourceful in our stewardship of the things we care about. When we recognize and embrace fragility and vulnerability, we are able to turn more honestly and wholeheartedly to the work of stewarding the things that we care about, including one another and this planet. The author and environmentalist Wendell Berry writes of facing fragility and limits this way: as earthly creatures, we live because we must within natural limits, which we may describe by such names as earth or ecosystem or watershed or place. But as humans, we may elect to respond to this necessary placement by the self-restraints implied in neighborliness, stewardship, thrift, temperance, generosity, care, kindness, friendship, loyalty, and love. Our human and earthly limits, properly understood, are not confinements, but rather inducements to formal elaboration and elegance, to fullness of relationship and meaning. Living within limits need not be confinement. And how do we get to this fullness of relationship and meaning that Berry writes about? For me, I find wisdom in the practices and disciplines that the seasons of Ramadan and Lent point us to, the practices of sufficiency and enoughness. With these practices, we might reevaluate our own consumption and our beliefs about our human relationship to the earth. We might start to question the belief that the earth exists to meet our human needs. We might realize that we are more fragile than we may have wanted to believe. However, I believe also that delight and joy can be found in facing the truth of our vulnerability and our limits, in redefining what is enough, and in looking to the earth itself for answers. We can find joy in the creative adaptability that we discover in facing our limits. In the Namib Desert on the western coast of southern Africa, there's a small insect called the Namib desert beetle. Has anyone heard about this little desert beetle? Oh, good, I have something new to share with you. The Namib desert beetle. And the Namib desert beetle has figured out how to survive in this ultra-arid area. To gather water, it climbs to the crest of a sand dune, and as the fog rolls in from the sea, it lifts its legs above its head like in a handstand, and tiny droplets of water roll down its belly and into its mouth. The Namib desert beetle inspired two people named Marcus and Catherine Ottmers to address their own water scarcity challenge. The Ottmers live in an extremely hot and arid region of western Texas, and they are passionate about living sustainably in the natural environment that they have found themselves in. Drawing on the wisdom of the Namib desert beetle, they designed a roofing system to harvest rain and dew. It's 50 feet by 50 feet, a shed-style metal roof. And the roof slopes to the west, shading itself in the early morning hours. And so as atmospheric moisture, just that water vapor in the air, condenses on the metal before warming up later in the day. And speaking of the inspiration for the roof design, Marcus Ottmers says, "The beetle puts its ass to the wind. We built the building copying the beetle. On a humid morning, they can harvest 74 gallons of dew. And the Ottmers have done so well with their dew collection that they have a 5,000-gallon tank that they keep full of harvested water as a community water spot in times of need." Dr. Rajmendra Singh, who I mentioned earlier, has become known as the waterman of India. After restoring that first successful Johad, Dr. Singh and his organization began to share the story of their success and what they learned with other villages and other states in India. Amazingly, as the groundwater in the region returned, once dried up rivers were also restored. Rivers like the Arvari River that had been dry for decades began to flow year-round. Wells that were once parched became full once again. 250,000 wells were recharged, benefiting more than 1 million people and inspiring people to return to the area, a reverse migration. 7 rivers in that area were revived, and the temperature there was reduced by 2 degrees Celsius. The poet Tamiko Bayer writes, "I think we all have the power to do what we must to survive. May we find that power within us. May we use that power to find strength in our fragility, to live with neighborliness, stewardship, kindness, and love, knowing that all we have, when it is cared for and shared, is truly enough." So may it be. I invite you now to join in our closing hymn. We'll be singing Keepers of the Earth, which you heard the choir sing earlier. We'll all be invited to join in, and the words will appear up here on the walls. service, we extinguish our chalice and carry with us its flame of truth, the warmth of community, and the spark of hope into the days and the week ahead. And as we do so, let us say together our mission statement. We welcome all
as we build a loving community to nurture each person's spiritual journey, serve in need, and protect the earth, our home.
These closing words are by Deanne L. New. Let us join with the earth and with each other to bring new life to the land, to restore the waters, to refresh the air, to protect the animals, to treasure the trees, to gaze at the stars, to cherish the human community, to heal the earth, to remember the children. Let us go forth to put our words into action. And we conclude our service with the postlude.